February 14th, 2024, 11:47 p.m., Interstate 90, Montana-Wyoming border.
The white wolf's body hit the grill at 68 miles per hour. Dylan Hart felt the impact through the steering wheel before his brain processed what his headlights had caught. A flash of pure white against black asphalt, amber eyes wide with shock, and then the sickening thud of 110 pounds of animal meeting 40,000 pounds of steel. The semi jackknifed, tires screamed. The trailer swung left, nearly taking out the guardrail. Dylan fought the wheel, muscle memory from 14 years of long-haul trucking taking over. The rig shuddered to a stop sideways across both lanes, hazard lights throwing red pulses across fresh snow piled 8 feet high on either side of the highway. Dylan sat frozen, hands locked on the wheel. His heart hammered against his ribs. Breath came in short, sharp gasps that fogged the windshield. Outside, the temperature was 19 below zero. The wind howled through the mountain pass with enough force to rock the cab. He didn't want to look, didn't want to see what he'd done. But he looked anyway. If stories about second chances and impossible bonds move you, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now, let's see what Dylan found in the snow. The wolf lay 40 feet behind the truck, a broken shape against white powder. Dylan grabbed his heavy coat, pulled on insulated gloves, and climbed down from the cab. Wind hit him like a fist. Snow devils swirled across the empty highway, no other vehicles in sight. It was Valentine's Day, nearly midnight, in the most isolated stretch of I-90 between Billings and Buffalo. He was alone. He approached the wolf slowly, his boots crunched on packed ice. Each step felt heavier than the last. She was still alive. Dylan's stomach dropped. The wolf's chest rose and fell in shallow, rapid movements. Blood pooled dark beneath her, steaming in the frozen air. Her left rear leg bent at an angle that made Dylan's own legs weak. But what stopped him cold were her eyes, amber and gold, locked on his face with an intensity that felt almost human. She didn't growl, didn't bare her teeth, just watched him with those impossible eyes. Dylan pulled out his phone. No signal. Of course. He was in a dead zone, surrounded by mountains that blocked everything. The nearest town was Ranchester, 23 miles west. The nearest veterinarian was probably twice that distance. The wolf whimpered, a sound so small and broken that it cracked something open in Dylan's chest. He made a decision he'd question for months afterward. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I'm going to help you." The wolf's eyes tracked him as he returned to the truck. Dylan grabbed the thermal blanket from his emergency kit, the one he'd carried for 3 years and never used. He approached the wolf again, moving slow, hands visible. "Easy. I'm not going to hurt you more than I already have." He wrapped the blanket around her carefully, expecting teeth at any moment. The wolf remained still, those amber eyes never leaving his face. When he lifted her, she weighed less than he'd expected, but the warmth of her body through the blanket was startling. He could feel her heartbeat, rapid and thready. Dylan placed her in the passenger seat of his cab, reclined it flat, cranked the heat to maximum. The wolf's breathing was getting shallower. He climbed back into the driver's seat, grabbed his CB radio. "Breaker, breaker. This is Big Sky Dylan on I-90 eastbound, mile marker 37. I need emergency assistance. I hit a wolf. She's alive, but critical. I need a vet, any vet. Does anyone copy?" Static answered him. "Come on, someone. Please." More static. Then a crackle. "Big Sky Dylan, this is southbound Sam. I copy. You said a wolf?" "Affirmative. White wolf, maybe 110 pounds, severe injuries. I can't get a phone signal, I need a vet." A pause. "Brother, that's a protected species. You report this, Fish and Wildlife will be all over you. They might press charges." Dylan looked at the wolf. Her eyes were starting to glaze. "I don't care about charges, she's dying. Help me." Another pause, longer this time. "All right. Dr. Sarah Chen runs an emergency animal clinic in Sheridan. That's your best shot. Take exit 44. Head south on Route 14. It's 31 miles. I'll radio ahead. Tell her you're coming. Thank you. Dylan, drive fast. He drove faster than he ever had with a loaded trailer. The wolf lay beside him, her breathing now a wet rattle that Dylan recognized from when his wife had died. Pneumonia filling the lungs, the body shutting down. Stay with me, he said, one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the wolf's head. Come on, stay. The wolf's eyes found his. For just a moment they focused. Then they drifted closed. No, 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 stay awake. Look at me. He was talking to a dying animal like it could understand him, like it mattered. But 3 years ago, Dylan had sat beside another hospital bed, holding another hand, saying the same words. Stay with me. Look at me. Don't go. His wife hadn't stayed. The wolf wasn't going to either. Dylan's vision blurred. He blinked hard, focused on the road. Exit 44 appeared through the snow. He took it too fast, the trailer fishtailing, but he corrected and kept going. Route 14 south. Sheridan Animal Emergency. The clinic appeared after 28 minutes that felt like 28 hours. Dylan pulled into the parking lot, horn blaring. Lights were on inside. The front door opened, and a woman in scrubs ran out, followed by 2 technicians with a stretcher. Dr. Sarah Chen was maybe 40, black hair pulled back tight, eyes sharp and assessing. She looked at the wolf, then at Dylan. You're the truck driver? Yes. I hit her at 11:47. She's been... His voice cracked. She's been trying so hard. Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. Get her inside, now. They transferred the wolf to the stretcher. Dylan followed them into the clinic, into a bright surgery room that smelled of antiseptic and fear. Dr. Chen worked with swift, practiced
efficiency, checking vitals, starting an IV, injecting something into the line. Pupils are responsive. Heart rate is weak but steady. Left femur is shattered. She's got internal bleeding, probably a ruptured spleen. She's also... Dr. Chen paused, her hands moving over the wolf's abdomen. She's pregnant, about 6 months along, 3 pups, maybe 4. Dylan felt like he'd been hit himself. Pregnant? Yes, Dr. Chen looked at him directly. This wolf has about a 15% chance of surviving surgery. The pups have 0 chance. And even if she survives, a 3-legged wolf in the wild is a dead wolf. She'll starve or freeze. Do you understand what I'm saying? Dylan understood. She was asking if he wanted her to try. He thought about his wife, about the night she'd asked him to let her go, about how he'd refused, how he'd begged the doctors to try everything, how he'd made her last 3 weeks a hell of machines and pain, how she'd died anyway, hating him for not letting her go peacefully. He looked at the white wolf, at this creature he'd destroyed with his carelessness. Her amber eyes were open again, fixed on his face. Try, he said. Please try. Dr. Chen nodded. Then you need to leave. This is going to take hours. Dylan didn't want to leave, but he did. He sat in the waiting room, still wearing his blood-stained coat, and waited, and waited. At 3:17 a.m., Dr. Chen emerged. Her scrubs were covered in blood. Her face was grey with exhaustion. Dylan stood up so fast his vision swam. She's alive, Dr. Chen said. Barely. I had to amputate the left rear leg. The femur was too damaged to save. I removed her spleen. She lost 2 of the 4 pups, but 2 are still viable. Her chances of making it through the night are maybe 30%. If she does, she's facing weeks of recovery, possible infection, and she'll never survive in the wild. Can I see her? Dr. Chen hesitated. She's sedated. She won't know you're there. I need to see her. She led him to a recovery room. The wolf lay on a padded table, an IV line in her front leg, bandages wrapped around her torso and the stump where her rear leg used to be. She looked impossibly small and fragile. Dylan stood beside her, one hand hovering over her head. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." The wolf's eyes opened, just a crack. They found Dylan's face. Her tail moved slightly. Not a wag, just a tiny movement of acknowledgement. Then she closed her eyes again. Dr. Chen touched Dylan's shoulder. "You should go home. Get some rest. I'll call you if there's any change." "I don't have a home," Dylan said quietly. "I live in my truck." Dr. Chen studied him. "Then you can sleep in the waiting room. But I'm not promising she'll make it." "I know." Dylan returned to the waiting room. He sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair and didn't sleep. He watched the sky turn from black to grey through the windows. He listened to the sounds of animals in other rooms. A dog barking, a cat crying, hum of machines keeping broken things alive. At 6:42 a.m., his phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. "Hello? Mr. Hart? This is Officer Daniel Price with Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks. I understand you were involved in a collision with a grey wolf last night." Dylan's heart sank. "She's white, actually, and yes. I'll need to take a statement. Can you remain at your current location?" "I'm at Sheridan Animal Emergency. I'll be there in 45 minutes. The call ended. Dylan put his head in his hands. Here it came. The charges, the fines, maybe jail time. He'd destroyed a protected animal. It didn't matter that it was an accident. Officer Price arrived at 7:30 a.m. He was younger than Dylan expected, maybe 30, with the serious expression of someone who took his job very seriously. They sat in the clinic's small office while Dylan explained everything. The wolf appearing in his headlights, the impact, his decision to bring her here. Price took notes, his expression unreadable. When Dylan finished, the officer sat back. "Mr. Hart, you're aware that grey wolves are protected under the Endangered Species Act?" "Yes." "And you're aware that even accidental harm can result in penalties?" "Yes." Price studied him. "You also saved her life. Dr. Chen says the wolf would have died on that highway within 20 minutes if you'd left her there. Most people would have." Dylan said nothing. "I'm not filing charges," Price said finally. "This was clearly accidental. You took immediate action to save the animal. However, there are complications. This wolf can't be released back into the wild. A 3-legged pregnant wolf won't survive. She needs specialized care." "What happens to her?" "Normally, we'd transfer her to a wildlife sanctuary, but the nearest one with space is in Idaho, and transport in her condition would likely kill her. The other option is..." Price didn't finish, but Dylan understood. "Euthanasia." "No," Dylan said. "Excuse me?" "I said no. I'm not letting you kill her because I broke her." Price frowned. "Mr. Hart, with all respect, you don't have a say in." "Then give me custody. Whatever paperwork you need, I'll sign it. I'll pay for her care. I'll find a sanctuary when she's strong enough to move. But you're not putting her down. You live in a truck. I'll figure it out." Price stared at him for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, made a call, had a quiet conversation Dylan couldn't fully hear. When he hung up, he looked tired. "This is highly irregular, but my supervisor says if you're willing to sign a care agreement and post a bond for her medical costs, we can make it work temporarily. You'll be legally responsible for her welfare. If she suffers, if she escapes, if anything goes wrong, you're liable." "I understand." The bond is $10,000. Dylan's savings account had $11,400. Everything he'd saved in 3 years of living in his truck, eating truck stop food, buying nothing he didn't absolutely need. "I'll do it." Officer Price looked at him like he was insane. He probably was. 2 hours later, Dylan had signed papers he barely read and transferred money he couldn't afford to lose. The wolf was legally his responsibility, his problem, his fault. Dr. Chen told him the wolf woke up briefly at noon, seemed aware of her surroundings, ate a small amount of ground meat. Good signs. But she'd need weeks of care, possibly months, and she'd need somewhere to recover that wasn't a veterinary clinic. Dylan made phone calls. He found a wildlife rehabilitation specialist named Margaret Torres
who lived on 40 acres outside of Buffalo, Wyoming. She'd worked with injured wolves before. She had space. She'd do it for $2,000 a month, plus medical costs. Dylan had $1,400 left after the bond. He had credit cards he'd never used. He used them now. That evening, he sat beside the wolf's recovery cage. She was awake, amber eyes watching him through the bars. Dr. Chen had warned him not to try to touch her. She was wild, in pain, unpredictable. But Dylan needed to say something. "I took everything from you," he whispered. "Your pack, your freedom, your leg, your babies. I know you can't understand me, but I'm going to make this right. I'm going to make sure you're okay. That's a promise." The wolf watched him. Her tail moved slightly against the cage floor. For just a moment, Dylan let himself believe she understood. 3 weeks later, the wolf was strong enough to transfer to Margaret Torres's rehabilitation facility. Dylan drove her there himself in a modified trailer Margaret had provided. The wolf, Margaret insisted on calling her by some name, but Dylan still thought of her as just the wolf, traveled quietly, watching the world pass through the small ventilation windows. Margaret's property was everything Dr. Chen had promised. 40 acres of pine forest and meadow, with a heated barn converted into recovery pens, and a small cabin where Margaret lived. She was 58, built like someone who'd spent her life working with large animals, with grey hair in a practical braid, and hands that moved with confident gentleness. "You're the truck driver," she said when Dylan arrived. "That's me. Heard about you. The guy who spent his life savings on a wolf he hit." News travels fast. Margaret smiled slightly. "In the wildlife rehab community, you're famous. Also, some people think you're an idiot." They're probably right. They transferred the wolf to a large pen in the barn. It had soft bedding, heat lamps, and enough space for her to move around as she learned to navigate on 3 legs. The wolf sniffed every corner, testing boundaries, then settled in a back corner where she could watch the door. "She'll be defensive for a while," Margaret said. "Wolves need time to trust. But she's young, maybe 4 years old, and that works in her favor. Young wolves adapt better than old ones." "How long until she can be moved to a sanctuary?" Margaret gave him a long look. "Mr. Hart." Dylan, you need to understand something. 3-legged wolves don't get adopted by sanctuaries. They're too much work, too expensive to keep, too hard to house with other wolves. Most facilities will euthanize her." The words hit Dylan like cold water. "You're saying there's no sanctuary that'll take her?" "I'm saying you need to prepare for the possibility that she lives here permanently. Or—" Margaret didn't finish. "I'm not killing her. Then she lives here. And you keep paying. Can you do that?" Dylan thought about his empty savings account, his maxed credit cards, his job that kept him on the road 300 days a year. He thought about his wife's face when she'd asked him to let her go. He thought about the wolf's amber eyes watching him through the cage. "Yes," he lied. For the next 5 months, Dylan did something he'd never done in 14 years of trucking. He took local routes. Short hauls that kept him within 200 miles of Buffalo. His income dropped by 40%. He worked longer hours for less pay. He visited the wolf every 2 weeks when his schedule allowed. Margaret sent video updates. The wolf learning to walk on 3 legs, her gait awkward at first but gradually stronger. The wolf's belly growing as the pregnancy progressed. The wolf's wariness slowly fading as she realized Margaret wasn't a threat. In late July, the wolf gave birth to 2 pups, both healthy, both moving and nursing within hours. Margaret called Dylan with the news. He was parked at a rest stop outside Casper, eating cold pizza and trying to make his budget work. "She did it," Margaret said, her voice bright with amazement. 2 pups, a male and a female. They're perfect." Dylan felt something crack in his chest. Relief and guilt mixed together until he couldn't tell them apart. "That's good," he managed. "That's really good. You should come see them. Dylan, she's different since they were born. Calmer. She lets me check on the pups now. She's starting to trust."
I'll try. I've got to run to Denver, then back through Cheyenne, maybe in 2 weeks. All right. Dylan? You did a good thing. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you saved 3 lives. After she hung up, Dylan sat in his truck and cried for the first time since his wife's funeral. August 28th, 2024, 4:47 p.m. Interstate 25, 40 miles south of Casper, Wyoming. The blizzard came out of nowhere. 1 minute Dylan was driving under clear skies. The next minute the world disappeared into white chaos. Wind slammed into the side of his trailer, hard enough to push the entire rig sideways. Temperature dropped from 52 degrees to 18 in under an hour. His radio crackled. All vehicles on I-25, this is Wyoming Highway Patrol. We have a severe winter storm warning. All northbound and southbound traffic is advised to exit immediately and seek shelter. I repeat, exit immediately. Dylan checked his GPS. The nearest exit was 23 miles north. He could make it. He didn't make it. At mile marker 73, the black ice caught him. The front wheels slid right. Dylan corrected. The trailer jackknifed left. He felt the weightless moment of losing control, then the impact as the entire rig left the highway and plunged down an embankment. The world stopped spinning. Dylan's head throbbed. Blood ran warm down his temple, metallic taste in his mouth. The cab had come to rest at a 45-degree angle.
Nose down in a snowbank, trailer twisted behind it like a broken spine. The windshield was a spiderweb of cracks. Wind howled through a gap in the driver's side door. Dylan tried to move. Pain shot through his left shoulder, dislocated, maybe broken. His right leg was pinned under the crushed dashboard. He pulled his phone from his pocket with shaking hands. The screen was shattered but still lit. No signal, of course. He tried the radio. Dead. The impact had ripped the antenna clean off. Dylan looked through what remained of his windshield. Nothing but white. Snow falling so thick he couldn't see 10 feet. The temperature gauge on his dashboard read 11 degrees and dropping. His engine was dead, which meant no heat. He was 40 miles from anywhere, in a blizzard, with a broken shoulder and a pinned leg, and no way to call for help. Dylan laughed. The sound came out broken and slightly hysterical. After everything, after saving the wolf, after bankrupting himself, after changing his entire life. This was how it ended. Frozen to death in a wrecked truck on a Wyoming highway. The irony wasn't lost on him. He tried to free his leg. The dashboard had crumpled around it, metal twisted into shapes that weren't meant to exist. Every movement sent white-hot pain up his spine. After 10 minutes of trying, Dylan gave up. He wasn't getting out without help. Help that wasn't coming. He checked his phone again. Still no signal. Battery at 47%. He turned it off to save power, though he wasn't sure why. If he froze to death, it wouldn't matter if his phone had battery. The cold came fast. Within 30 minutes, Dylan couldn't feel his feet. Within an hour, his hands were numb despite his gloves. He pulled his coat tighter, but it was a spring coat, not made for this. The wind coming through the damaged door cut through fabric like it wasn't there. Dylan's thoughts drifted. He thought about his wife, about whether there was an afterlife, about whether she'd be waiting, or if death was just nothing. He thought about the wolf, his wolf, and her 2 pups. Margaret would take care of them. She wouldn't let them suffer. At least he'd done one good thing before the end. The sun set. The temperature dropped to 3 below zero. Dylan's breathing grew shallow. He recognized hypothermia from his trucking safety courses. Stage 1, shivering. Stage 2, confusion, loss of coordination. Stage 3, you stop shivering because your body's giving up. Stage 4, death. He'd reached stage 2. His thoughts were getting fuzzy, disconnected. He kept trying to remember his wife's face and seeing the wolf's amber eyes instead. "Sorry," he whispered to no one. "I tried." Then he heard it. A howl. Distant at first, then closer. Then another howl answering the first. Then a third.
Wolves. Dylan's hypothermic brain couldn't process whether this was good or bad. Wolves didn't attack humans. He remembered that much from Officer Price's lecture. But these weren't normal circumstances. He was trapped, helpless, bleeding. He probably smelled like an easy meal. The howls grew closer. Through the broken windshield, Dylan saw shapes moving in the
Darkness. Eyes reflected green in the faint moonlight filtering through storm clouds. Not one wolf. 4, 5, 6. A pack. They circled the truck, silent now except for the crunch of their paws in deep snow. Dylan couldn't move, couldn't do anything but watch. His hand fumbled for something, anything to defend himself with. His fingers found a tire iron under the seat, for all the good it would do with a pinned leg and a useless arm. One wolf approached the driver's side door, larger than the others, moving with the confidence of a leader. The wolf's head appeared in the gap of the broken door, white as fresh snow, amber eyes that Dylan would recognize anywhere. "No," he whispered, "that's impossible." But it wasn't impossible. It was her. The wolf he'd hit. The wolf he'd saved. The wolf who lived 200 miles north in Margaret Torres's rehabilitation facility with 2 5-month-old pups. The white wolf stared at him through the gap in the door. Her head tilted slightly, studying him. Recognition flickered in those amber eyes. She made a sound in her throat, not quite a growl, not quite a whine. Then she backed away from the door. Dylan's confused, freezing brain tried to make sense of it. Margaret's facility wasn't escape-proof, but it was secure. How had the wolf gotten out? Why had she traveled 200 miles? And the pack with her? Where had they come from? The white wolf approached again. This time, she grabbed the twisted door with her teeth and pulled. The metal groaned. She pulled harder, bracing with her 3 legs. The door shifted an inch. 2 inches. She was trying to open it. "You can't," Dylan said, his voice slurred with cold. "You can't get me out, I'm pinned." The wolf ignored him. She pulled again, her powerful neck muscles straining. The door opened another few inches. Cold air blasted into the cab, and Dylan gasped. But now he could see her fully, thinner than before, scarred, but alive. Very much alive. A second wolf appeared beside her. Male, younger, dark grey with intelligent yellow eyes. He grabbed the door's edge and pulled with her. Together, they wrenched it open another foot. Dylan stared. He'd never heard of wolves doing anything like this. Wolves were smart, but this was something else. This was problem-solving. This was intentional rescue. The white wolf stuck her head into the cab. Her nose touched Dylan's face, his neck, his injured shoulder. She smelled blood. Her ears flattened against her head. "I'm stuck," Dylan said. He was definitely stage 2 hypothermia now, talking to a wolf like she could understand. "My leg. I can't get out." The white wolf backed out of the cab. She made a sound, sharp, commanding. The other wolves gathered closer. Dylan counted them now, 6 total. The white alpha, the dark grey male, 2 smaller grey females, 1 older male with a grizzled muzzle, and 1 younger wolf, barely more than a pup, with silver-white fur similar to the alpha. That last one made Dylan's heart stop. The pup. One of her pups. She'd brought her baby. The wolves moved with coordinated purpose. 2 disappeared around the front of the truck. Dylan heard scraping sounds, like they were digging. The white alpha and the dark grey male stayed at his door, watching him. "What are you doing?" Dylan asked. His words were starting to slur badly now. If you're watching this and wondering how this story ends, leave a like and tell us what you think Dylan should do. Now let's see what happens next. The wolves at the front of the truck reappeared, snow covering their muzzles. They'd been digging around the hood. The dark grey male left the door and joined them. Together, the 3 wolves began pushing against the front of the truck, trying to shift it, to level it somehow. The truck moved, just an inch,
but it moved. Dylan felt the pressure on his leg shift slightly, not enough to free him, but enough to give him hope. The wolves pushed again, coordinated, using their combined weight. The truck shifted another 2 inches. "Keep going," Dylan heard himself say. "Come on." They pushed again. The truck groaned, settled, and suddenly the pressure on Dylan's leg released. He pulled hard, ignoring the screaming pain, and his leg came free. Broken, almost certainly, but free. Dylan tried to move toward the open door. His body wouldn't cooperate. Too cold, too damaged, too far gone. He made it maybe 6 inches before collapsing against the passenger seat. The white wolf jumped into the cab. All 95 pounds of 3-legged predator landed beside Dylan in the destroyed cockpit. She shouldn't have been able to make that jump, but desperation did strange things. She grabbed Dylan's coat collar in her teeth and pulled. Dylan tried to help. He pushed with his good leg, pulled with his good arm. Together, human and wolf, they got him to the door opening. The other wolves grabbed his coat, his sleeves, anything they could reach. They pulled him out of the cab and into the snow. Dylan lay in a drift, looking up at the night sky. Snow fell on his face. He couldn't feel it anymore. Couldn't feel anything. The white wolf lay down beside him, her body pressed against his, sharing warmth. The other wolves gathered close, forming a circle around him. Living windbreaks. Their combined body heat created a pocket of warmth that Dylan's dying body desperately needed. "Why?" Dylan whispered. "I destroyed your life. Why are you saving me?" The white wolf's amber eyes met his. She laid her head across his chest. Her heartbeat thrummed against his ribs, steady and strong. And somehow, lying in the snow surrounded by wolves, Dylan understood. Debt. Pack. Family. These weren't human concepts. They were older than humans, deeper than words. He'd saved her life when he could have left her to die. He'd given her a chance when he could have walked away. And now, when he was the one dying on a frozen highway, she'd come back. She'd brought her pack, her family, to save his life the way he'd saved hers. The wolves stayed with him through the night. When Dylan's shivering got too violent, they pressed closer. When his breathing became too shallow, the white wolf nudged his face, forcing him to stay conscious. The younger male brought snow to his mouth, making him eat it for hydration. The old grizzled male disappeared and returned an hour later dragging something, a rabbit, fresh killed. He dropped it near Dylan's head. Food. They were providing for him. Dylan couldn't eat it. His stomach rebelled at the thought, but the gesture broke something open in his chest. These animals were treating him like pack, like he belonged to them. The temperature dropped to 8 below zero. Dylan drifted in and out of consciousness. Each time he woke, the wolves were there, watching over him, keeping him alive through sheer presence. Somewhere around 2 a.m., Dylan woke to find the white wolf's pup curled against his side. The young wolf, female he could tell now, was small for 5 months, her white fur tinged with silver along her spine. She looked exactly like her mother had when Dylan first saw her bleeding on the highway. The pup's amber eyes watched him with curiosity and something else. Trust. Dylan's good hand moved slowly, painfully. He touched the pup's head. She didn't flinch, just leaned into the touch, accepting it. "Your mom's crazy," Dylan whispered. "You know that? Completely crazy." The pup made a small sound in her throat, almost like agreement. The white alpha watched from 3 feet away. Her expression, if wolves could have expressions, seemed almost satisfied, like she'd made her point, like she'd returned the favor. Dawn came slowly. The storm had passed, leaving behind 3 feet of fresh snow and a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Dylan was still alive, still conscious though barely. The wolves had kept him warm enough to survive, but his injuries were serious. He needed real help. A hospital. The dark grey male stood suddenly, ears forward. He looked south down the highway. A moment later, Dylan heard it too. A truck. No, multiple trucks. Engine sounds carrying across frozen air. Highway patrol, had to be, searching for stranded vehicles after the storm. The white wolf heard it too. She stood, shook snow from her fur, and looked at her pack. She made a low sound, and the other wolves rose immediately. They were leaving. "Wait," Dylan said. His voice was barely a whisper. The white wolf approached him one last time. She lowered her head and touched her nose to his forehead. A gesture so gentle it brought tears to Dylan's frozen eyes. "Thank you," he managed. "I'm sorry for everything. Thank you." The wolf held his gaze for a long moment. Then she turned and bounded away through the snow, her pack following. Dylan watched them go. 6 shapes moving fast across white landscape, disappearing into the tree line just as the first highway patrol truck appeared around the bend. The paramedics found Dylan 20 minutes later. They were shocked he was alive. Severe hypothermia, broken leg, dislocated shoulder, 3 cracked ribs, and a concussion. But alive. "How the hell did you survive the night?" one paramedic asked as they loaded Dylan onto a stretcher. Dylan looked toward the trees where the wolves had disappeared. "I had help." "Help? Out here? From who?" "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." They airlifted him to Wyoming Medical Center in Casper. During the flight, Dylan drifted in and out, the pain medication making everything soft and distant. But one thought kept circling through his foggy brain. The white wolf had escaped Margaret's facility, had traveled 200 miles through wilderness, had brought a pack, her pack, to save him. How was that possible? More importantly, where had the pack come from? At the hospital, Officer Daniel Price was waiting. He sat beside Dylan's bed after the doctors finished, his expression serious. "Mr. Hart, I have some questions." "I figured." "Margaret Torres called us 3 days ago. She said the white wolf you'd been sponsoring escaped her facility. We've been searching, but no luck. Then you turn up barely alive in a crashed truck. The paramedics say you mentioned help. Want to explain?" Dylan thought carefully about his answer. "I was hypothermic, confused. I don't remember much." Price studied him. "The paramedics found wolf tracks around your truck. A lot of wolf tracks. Multiple animals. And you're telling me you don't remember?" "I remember cold. I remember trying not to die. That's it." Price didn't believe him. Dylan could see it in his face. But without proof, what could he say? "Mr. Hart, if that wolf is traveling with a pack, we need to know. Pack dynamics change things. A 3-legged wolf leading a pack is unusual. It suggests she's adapted. It also suggests potential danger to humans." "She's not dangerous." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." Price sighed. "Look, I'm trying to help you here. That wolf is your legal responsibility. If she harms someone, you're liable. If she causes property damage, you're liable. Help me help you." Dylan closed his eyes. "I don't know where she is. That's the truth. I don't know how she found me, or where she went." It wasn't the whole truth, but it was true enough. Price left after extracting a promise that Dylan would call if he heard anything about the wolf. Dylan agreed because what else could he do? After Price left, Dylan called Margaret. "Dylan! Oh, thank God. I heard about your accident. Are you okay?" "I'm alive." "Margaret, tell me about the escape." A pause. "I don't know what happened. She was in her pen one night. The next morning, she was gone. She took both pups with her. Just vanished. The locks weren't broken. The fence wasn't damaged. It was like she'd learned to open the gate herself." "Is that possible? Wolves are smart, but that smart?" "I don't know. Dylan, there's something else. Before she escaped, she'd been acting strange, restless, pacing, like she was looking for something, or someone." Dylan's throat tightened. "When did she escape?" 4 days ago. "Why?" 4 days. which meant she'd traveled 200 miles in 3 days, through wilderness, with 2 5-month-old pups, to find him. Margaret, you said she was alone when you got her. No pack. That's right. Then where did the other wolves come from? Another pause, longer this time. What are you talking about? Dylan told her everything. The rescue, the 6 wolves, the coordinated effort, the way they'd worked together like a military unit. Margaret was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was shaking slightly. Dylan, that's impossible. A 3-legged wolf can't lead a pack. She can't hunt properly. She can't fight for dominance. No pack would accept her. But they did. Then we're dealing with something I've never seen before. Something that doesn't follow any rules I know. After he hung up, Dylan lay in his hospital bed and stared at the ceiling. His body hurt everywhere. His leg was in a cast. His shoulder was immobilized. But all he could think about was the white wolf's amber eyes. The way she'd looked at him before leaving. Like they weren't done yet. Like this was just the beginning. Dylan spent 6 days in the hospital. Doctors wanted to keep him longer, but his insurance was maxed and his bank account was empty. On day 7, he checked himself out against medical advice. Leg in a cast, shoulder in a sling, and enough pain medication to knock out a horse. Margaret picked him up in her battered Ford pickup. She didn't say much during the 2-hour drive to Buffalo, just glanced at him occasionally, like she was checking to make sure he was real. "You look terrible," she said finally. "Feel worse. The doctors say you're lucky to be alive. The wolves kept me alive." Margaret's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Dylan, we need to talk about that. About what you told me on the phone." "I know. Because if it's true, if she really found you, if she really has a pack, then we're dealing with something unprecedented. And it's going to draw attention. The kind of attention that gets wolves killed." Dylan stared out the window at passing snow. "I won't let that happen. You might not have a choice." They drove the rest of the way in silence. Margaret's property looked different than Dylan remembered. Maybe because he'd almost died. Maybe because everything looked different now. The barn was warm and comfortable. The guest room she offered him was small but clean. Dylan collapsed into bed and slept for 16 hours straight. When he woke, it was dark. His leg throbbed despite the medication. His shoulder felt like someone had driven nails into the joint. But he was alive. And somewhere out there, 6 wolves were alive too. Dylan pulled himself out of bed, grabbed his crutches, and made his way to the kitchen. Margaret was sitting at the table with a laptop and a stack of papers. She looked up when he entered. "Coffee's fresh." "Thanks." Dylan poured a cup and sat down carefully. "What are you working on?" "Research. Trying to understand what we're dealing with." She turned the laptop so he could see. The screen showed an article about wolf pack dynamics. Normal wolf packs are family units, parents and offspring. The breeding pair leads, the others follow. But your wolf, the white alpha, she can't breed anymore. The surgery removed her reproductive capability, along with the damaged organs. Dylan's chest tightened. "I didn't know that." Dr. Chen had to. The trauma was too extensive. So if she can't breed, she shouldn't be able to maintain alpha status. The pack should have replaced her with a fertile female. But they didn't. Maybe the pack is family, her first 2 pups. Those pups are 5 months old, too young to form a pack, and you said there were 6 wolves total. Where did the other 4 come from? Dylan had been wondering the same thing. Maybe other lone wolves? Outcasts who needed a pack? Margaret leaned back in her chair. "That's what I thought. So I did some digging, made some calls. There's been unusual wolf activity in the region over the past 3 months. Lone wolves moving through territories where they don't belong. Sightings of a white wolf with followers. A rancher near Casey reported losing 2 calves, killed by wolves but not eaten. Just killed and left." "The white wolf wouldn't do that." "How do you know?" "I just know." Margaret studied him. "Dylan, I believe you about the rescue. I believe she saved your life. But we can't let emotion cloud our judgment. Wolves are predators. They kill. That's their nature. She's different. Maybe. Or maybe she's exactly what she's supposed to be, and we're just projecting human meaning onto animal behavior. Dylan wanted to argue, but he was too tired. His body ached. His head pounded. He finished his coffee and went back to bed. But he couldn't sleep. He lay in the dark and thought about amber eyes and the weight of a wolf's head on his chest, about debt and pack and family, about how the white wolf had looked at him before she left, like she was saying goodbye, but also see you soon. At 3 a.m., Dylan made a decision. He was going to find her. It took 3 weeks before Dylan could walk without crutches. 3 weeks of physical therapy, pain, and frustration. Margaret tried to talk him out of his plan. You're in no condition to go into the wilderness. Your leg isn't healed. Your shoulder isn't healed. And even if you find them, then what? Then I make sure they're safe. From what? From people like Officer Price. From ranchers who want them dead. From anyone who sees them as a threat. You can't protect them forever. I can try. Margaret sighed. She was quiet for a long moment, then stood and walked to a closet. She pulled out a rifle case and set it on the table. If you're going to do this, you're doing it right. This is a tranquilizer rifle, non-lethal. If you run into trouble, animal or human, it'll give you options without killing anyone. Dylan stared at the case. I can't afford. I'm not selling it to you. I'm lending it. Along with a tracking GPS unit, satellite phone, cold weather gear, and enough supplies for 2 weeks. You bring them back, and we're even. Why? Margaret's expression softened. Because that wolf saved your life when she had every reason to let you die. Because you bankrupted yourself trying to save her. Because you're either the bravest man I've ever met, or the
stupidest. And either way, I want to see how this ends. Dylan started his search at the crash site. Highway crews had cleared the wreckage, but the embankment still showed signs, broken trees, torn earth, and when he looked close enough, wolf tracks. Old ones, faded by weather, but there. The tracks led northeast, into the Bighorn National Forest. Dylan followed them as best he could with his healing leg. The going was slow, painful. Snow was 3 feet deep in places. Temperature hovered around 15 degrees. He camped that first night under a rocky overhang, fire burning low, watching stars through pine branches. In the distance, he heard howling. Not close enough to identify, but close enough to remind him he wasn't alone out here. The second day, Dylan found more signs. A deer kill, bones picked clean, arranged in a way that suggested multiple wolves feeding. Scat that was fresh, maybe 2 days old. And something else. A marker. Someone had stacked 3 rocks in a deliberate pile. Not natural, not random. Dylan stared at it, his brain trying to make sense of it. Animals didn't stack rocks, but wolves did mark territory, just not like this. He found another marker 2 miles north, and another 3 miles after that. They were leading him somewhere. On the 4th day, Dylan found the den. It was a natural cave system carved into a limestone cliff face, hidden behind a waterfall that had frozen solid. You wouldn't see it unless you knew exactly where to look. Dylan almost missed it himself, only noticed because he saw wolf tracks disappearing into what looked like solid rock. He approached carefully, rifle ready but not aimed. "Hello?" His voice echoed off stone. "I know you're here. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just want to talk." Nothing. Just wind through frozen trees. Dylan tried again. "I know I'm trespassing. I know this is your territory, but I need to see her. I need to know she's okay." A shape appeared at the cave entrance. The dark, grey male. The one who'd helped pull Dylan from his truck. The wolf watched him with yellow eyes that held intelligence Dylan couldn't explain. "I'm a friend," Dylan said slowly, feeling ridiculous talking to a wolf. "She saved my life. I need to see her."
The dark grey male studied him for a long moment. Then he turned and disappeared into the cave. Dylan waited. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10. Then she appeared. The white alpha emerged from the cave like a ghost, her coat so pure it seemed to glow against dark stone. She moved with surprising grace on 3 legs, her balance perfect. She'd gained weight since February, was healthy, well-fed, strong. Behind her came the others, the 2 5-month-old pups, bigger now but still recognizable. The old grizzled male. 2 young grey females Dylan hadn't really focused on during the rescue. And one of those females was heavily pregnant. Dylan's medical training from trucking accidents kicked in. He recognized the signs: swollen belly, dropped stance, the
way the other wolves stayed close to her. She was maybe a week from giving birth. The white alpha approached Dylan slowly, stopped 10 feet away. They looked at each other. "Hi," Dylan said softly. "I've been looking for you." The wolf's tail moved slightly, not quite a wag, but acknowledgement. "I wanted to say thank you, properly, for saving my life. I know I already said it, but..." His voice cracked. "You didn't have to do that. After what I did to you, you could have let me die." The white wolf sat. Her amber eyes never left his face. "I need to know something," Dylan continued. "How did you find me? How did you know I was in trouble?" The wolf, of course, didn't answer, but she stood and walked toward him. Dylan's heart raced, but he didn't move. She approached until she was close enough to touch. Then she did something that stopped Dylan's breath. She laid her head against his good shoulder, the same gesture she'd made that night on the highway. Trust, acceptance, pack. Dylan's hand moved slowly to her head. His fingers sank into thick white fur. The wolf leaned into the touch, eyes closing briefly. "I'm going to protect you," Dylan whispered. "All of you. I don't know how, but I will. That's a promise." The wolf pulled back and looked at him. For just a moment, Dylan could have sworn he saw understanding in those amber eyes. Then she turned and walked back to her pack. The dark grey male approached next. He sniffed Dylan carefully, checking for threats. Apparently satisfied, he sat beside the white alpha. The message was clear: she trusts you, so I trust you. The 2 pups bounded over with the fearlessness of youth. They sniffed Dylan's cast, his coat, his boots. The female pup, the one who'd slept beside him on the highway, licked his hand. Her brother tried to grab Dylan's crutch and run off with it. Dylan laughed. The sound felt foreign after weeks of pain and fear. "You're going to need to learn some manners." The pregnant female stayed back, watching with cautious yellow eyes. The old grizzled male positioned himself protectively beside her. Dylan understood that dynamic too. Elder and mother-to-be. The future of the pack. "When's she due?" Dylan asked, knowing he wouldn't get an answer but needing to speak anyway. "A week? Less?" The white alpha made a low sound. The pregnant female approached slowly, limping slightly. Dylan noticed blood on her right front paw, a cut, maybe from ice. "Can I look?" Dylan moved carefully, keeping his motions slow and visible. The pregnant female watched him, but didn't retreat. He examined her paw. Deep laceration across the pad, probably painful, definitely at risk for infection. "I have medical supplies, basic stuff. Let me help." It took 20 minutes to clean and bandage the wound. The pregnant female stood perfectly still the entire time, never flinching, never growling. When Dylan finished, she licked his face once, quick, almost shy, and retreated back to the old male's side. The white alpha watched all of this with what Dylan could only describe as approval. That night, Dylan camped outside the cave entrance. He didn't dare enter uninvited. The wolves came and went throughout the evening, hunting, patrolling, living their lives. But they always came back, and each time they returned, one of them would pass close to Dylan. A brush of fur against his leg, a cold nose touching his hand. Small gestures that said, Your pack now.
Around midnight, the white alpha lay down beside Dylan's small fire. She didn't need the warmth. Her fur was designed for temperatures far below zero. But she stayed anyway, keeping watch, keeping him safe. "I don't understand you," Dylan said quietly. "Everything I know about wolves says this shouldn't work. You shouldn't be able to lead with 3 legs. You shouldn't be able to feed yourself, let alone a pack. But here you are, strong, healthy, taking care of everyone." The wolf's ears twitched at the sound of his voice. "My wife used to say that life finds a way, that adapting was more important than being perfect." Dylan stared into the fire. "I didn't understand what she meant. I thought she was just trying to make me feel better about failing her. But maybe she was right. Maybe it's not about being whole. It's about figuring out how to keep going anyway." The white alpha laid her head on her paws and watched him with ancient eyes. "You figured it out. How to keep going. I'm still working on it." Dylan stayed with the pack for 5 days. He watched their dynamics, learned their routines. The dark grey male was the beater, the white alpha's lieutenant. He did most of the actual hunting, using his 4 strong legs to run down prey that the alpha couldn't catch anymore. But every kill he brought back to her first. Respect for rank. The 2 pups were learning to hunt. Their attempts were clumsy, enthusiastic, and mostly unsuccessful. But the adults were patient, demonstrating techniques, letting the pups try and fail and try again. The old grizzled male was the pack's historian. Dylan had no better word for it. He stayed close to the pregnant female, teaching the pups, maintaining order. He moved slow, but with authority that even the young males respected. And the white alpha orchestrated all of it. She couldn't hunt efficiently, but she could lead. She made decisions: where to den, when to move, who hunted, and who stayed back. The pack followed her not because she was strongest, but because she was smartest. On the 5th day, the pregnant female went into labor. Dylan heard her whimpering from inside the cave around dawn. The white alpha emerged immediately, her expression, if wolves had expressions, tense. The pack gathered outside the entrance, waiting. "Is she okay?" Dylan asked. The alpha looked at him, then back at the cave. She made a decision. She approached Dylan and grabbed his coat sleeve in her teeth, gently but firmly. She wanted him to follow. Dylan's heart raced. "You want me inside?" The alpha pulled again. The message was clear. Yes. Dylan grabbed his medical kit, the basic first aid supplies Margaret had packed, and followed the white alpha into the cave. It was warmer inside, protected from wind. The space opened up into a natural chamber maybe 20 feet across. The pregnant female lay in the back corner on a bed of dried grass and fur. She panted heavily, her sides heaving. Complications. Dylan could see it in the way. She strained. Something was wrong. He approached slowly. "Hey, girl, let me help." The old grizzled male growled low. Warning. The white alpha made a sharp sound. The old male backed off, though he didn't look happy about it. Dylan knelt beside the pregnant female. His trucking company had required basic medical training. He wasn't a doctor, but he knew enough to recognize distress. The female was in active labor, but nothing was happening. A pup was stuck. "I need to check," Dylan said to no one in particular. "This might hurt." He worked carefully, gently. The female whined but didn't snap. Dylan felt carefully, his fingers finding the problem. Breech birth. The pup was coming backward, stuck in the birth canal. Okay, I can fix this. Maybe. Dylan had delivered exactly 1 baby in his life, a trucker's wife who'd gone into labor at a rest stop 3 years ago. He'd followed 911 instructions over the phone, and somehow the baby had survived. This was similar but also completely different. He worked for 10 minutes, adjusting position, trying to ease the stuck pup free without causing damage. The pregnant female panted and whined. The white alpha pressed against her side, offering comfort. The pack gathered close, watching with anxious eyes. Finally, Dylan felt movement. The pup shifted. He pulled gently, steadily, and suddenly the tiny body slipped free. not breathing, not moving. No. Dylan cleared the pup's airway, rubbed its chest, willed it to live. Come on, breathe. Nothing. The pregnant female made a sound that broke Dylan's heart. The white alpha's ears flattened. Dylan tried again, rubbed harder, breathed gently into the tiny nose. Don't you dare die. Not after all this. The pup coughed, gasped, took a shuddering breath. Life. Dylan handed the pup to its mother, who immediately began cleaning it with desperate licks. Relief flooded through him so intensely he felt dizzy. Behind him, the pack made sounds, not quite howls, but close. Celebration, joy. 2 more pups followed over the next hour, both healthy, both breathing strong. The mother cleaned them all, nudged them toward milk, and finally relaxed. 3 new lives. Dylan sat back against the cave wall, exhausted. The white alpha approached him and did something he'd never forget. She pressed her forehead against his, hard. A gesture of gratitude so profound it needed no translation. You're welcome, Dylan whispered. The pack was 9 now, and somehow, impossibly, Dylan was part of it. Dylan stayed 2 more days, making sure the new mother and pups were stable. On the 7th day, his satellite phone rang. Margaret. Dylan, you need to come back. Now. What's wrong? Fish and Wildlife. They know about the pack. Officer Price called me. They're organizing a tracking team. They're coming for her. Dylan's blood ran cold. When? Tomorrow, maybe sooner. They've got helicopters, tranquilizer guns, tracking equipment. Dylan, they're not planning to relocate. Price
said the pack is too habituated, too dangerous. They're planning to eliminate them.
No, they can't. You need to get back here. We need a plan. Dylan looked at the white alpha, at the 9 wolves who trusted him, at the 3 newborn pups who'd been alive for less than 48 hours. I'm not leaving them. Dylan! They're coming here. I stay here. I protect them. You can't fight the government. Watch me! He hung up. The white alpha watched him, head tilted. She knew something was wrong. Dylan could see it in the way her ears moved, the tension in her shoulders. They're coming for you, Dylan said. I won't let them take you. Any of you. I promise. The wolf approached and pressed her body against his leg. Trust. Dylan pulled out the tranquilizer rifle Margaret had lent him, checked the ammunition. 6 darts. Not enough to stop a full team, but maybe enough to slow them down. He was a truck driver, not a fighter, not a hero. Just a man who'd made a promise to a dying wolf on a frozen highway. But sometimes, that was enough. The helicopters arrived at dawn. Dylan heard them before he saw them, the distinctive thump, thump, thump of rotor blades cutting through frozen air. 2 helicopters, coming from the south, flying low over the tree line. The wolves heard them too. The pack gathered at the cave entrance, ears forward, bodies tense. The white alpha's hackles rose. She knew danger when she heard it. Dylan grabbed his satellite phone and called Margaret. They're here. Dylan, listen to me. You need to stand down. Let them do their job. Their job is killing her. Their job is public safety. If you interfere, they can arrest you. Federal charges. You could go to prison. I don't care. Dylan. He hung up and turned off the phone. Whatever happened next, he'd face alone. The helicopters circled once, twice, then landed in a clearing half a mile south. Dylan watched through binoculars as figures emerged. 6 people in Fish and Wildlife uniforms, carrying equipment. Officer Price was among them, along with a woman Dylan didn't recognize. She carried herself with authority. Supervisor, probably. The team moved with military precision. 2 stayed with the helicopters. 4 began hiking toward the cave, following tracks Dylan had been too injured and desperate to hide. He had maybe 20 minutes. Dylan turned to the white alpha. She watched him with those amber eyes, waiting for direction. She trusted him to lead, to protect, to find a way through this. We need to move, Dylan said. Get everyone deeper in the cave. Hide. The alpha understood tone if not words. She barked once, sharp, commanding. The pack responded immediately. The new mother gathered her pups carefully in her mouth, one by one, carrying them to the deepest part of the cave. The dark grey male and old grizzled male took defensive positions. The two young pups pressed close to their mother. Dylan positioned himself at the cave entrance, tranquilizer rifle across his lap. He wasn't going to shoot anyone, but they didn't know that. The Fish and Wildlife team appeared through the trees 15 minutes later. Officer Price led the way, flanked by 3 others with rifles, real rifles, not tranquilizers. The woman in charge brought up the rear, clipboard in hand. They stopped 30 feet from the cave entrance when they saw Dylan. "Mr. Hart," Price called out, "we need you to step away from that cave." "Can't do that." "Dylan, don't make this harder than it needs to be. You're here to kill them." The woman stepped forward. She was maybe 50, with steel grey hair and eyes that had seen too much. "Mr. Hart, I'm Director Susan Walsh, Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks. I understand you have a personal connection to these animals, but you're interfering with a federal wildlife management operation." "Management," Dylan said. "That's a nice word for murder." Walsh's expression didn't change. These wolves have demonstrated habituated behavior. They've lost their fear of humans. That makes them dangerous. Our mandate is to protect both the animals and the public. Sometimes that means making difficult decisions. They saved my life. I read the report. I'm glad you survived, but that doesn't change the situation. A pack of wolves comfortable around humans is a tragedy waiting to happen. We're here to prevent that tragedy. By killing them. By eliminating a threat before someone gets hurt. Dylan stood, rifle steady in his hands. "I'm someone, and I'll get hurt if you try to go through me." The 3 officers with real rifles immediately raised their weapons. Not aimed at Dylan, but ready. The message was clear: don't push this. Price stepped forward, hands up, non-threatening. "Dylan, I know you care about that wolf. I respect that. But you're talking about pointing a weapon at federal officers. That's a felony. Multiple felonies. Is that really how you want this to end?" "I'm not pointing anything at anyone. I'm just standing here, on public land, with my legally owned equipment." "You're obstructing a federal operation." "I'm exercising my right to be here." Walsh studied him. "Mr. Hart, I'm going to ask you one more time. Step aside. Let us do our job. If you comply, I'll overlook the obstruction charge. You can walk away from this. And if I don't, then we arrest you, remove you by force, and proceed anyway. The only difference is, you'll be in handcuffs when it happens." Dylan's mind raced. He couldn't fight them, couldn't stop them with force. But maybe he could stall. Every minute he bought was another minute to find a solution. "Can I ask you something, Director Walsh?" She sighed but nodded. "Go ahead." "Have any of these wolves ever attacked a human?" "Not yet, but..." "Have they killed livestock?" 2 calves near Casey. Killed and left uneaten. Not predation. Territorial defense. The rancher admitted he'd been shooting at wolves
on his property the week before.
Walsh's eyes narrowed slightly. "You've done your homework." "I've had time. So let me ask again. What specific threat do these wolves pose that justifies killing them?" "They're habituated, Mr. Hart. They've lost their natural fear of..." "No, they haven't. They're cautious around humans. They avoid contact. The only reason they interacted with me was because I'd saved the alpha's life. That's not habituation. That's gratitude. Wolves don't feel gratitude." Then explain how a 3-legged wolf traveled 200 miles to find me when I was dying. Explain how she brought a pack to keep me alive through a blizzard. Explain how she trusted me enough to let me inside her den to help deliver pups. Silence. One of the younger officers lowered his rifle slightly. "She let you in the den?" Dylan nodded. 3 days ago, one of the females had complications during birth. The alpha brought me in to help. I delivered 3 pups, all healthy. If these wolves were truly habituated, if they'd lost their fear, they wouldn't be this selective about human contact. They'd be approaching people indiscriminately. Have you had any reports of that? Walsh exchanged a glance with Price. No, because they're not habituated. They're intelligent. They've learned to distinguish between threats and non-threats. That's adaptation, not habituation. That's semantics, Mr. Hart. No, it's science. And if you eliminate this pack, you're destroying something rare, something unprecedented. A three-legged wolf leading a functional pack. That shouldn't be possible, but she made it work. She adapted. And you want to kill her for being extraordinary. The young officer who'd spoken earlier, his name tag read Martinez, stepped forward. Director, maybe we should reconsider, if the pack is stable and not causing problems. Officer Martinez, your opinion is noted, Walsh said coldly. But the decision has been made. Martinez fell silent, but Dylan caught the conflict in his eyes. Good. He wasn't the only one uncomfortable with this. Dylan tried a different approach. Director Walsh, I'm not asking you to leave them alone forever. I'm asking for time. Give me 30 days to prove they're not a threat. I'll document everything, their behavior, their territory, their interactions. If at the end of 30 days they've caused any problems, I'll step aside. But if they haven't, you leave them alone. We don't negotiate terms, Mr. Hart. Why not? What's 30 days against the life of 9 wolves? 3 of them newborns. You're really going to kill 3-day-old pups? That hit home. Dylan saw it in the way Walsh's jaw tightened, in how Martinez looked away. Even Price seemed uncomfortable. The pups would be relocated, Walsh said. We're not monsters. But their mother would die. You'd kill their mother and call it humane. Before Walsh could respond, a sound echoed from inside the cave, high-pitched, desperate, one of the pups crying. The white alpha
appeared at Dylan's side. Every officer's rifle came up immediately. Safeties clicked off. Price shouted, "Nobody move!" The white wolf ignored the weapons. She walked past Dylan, moving with that distinctive 3-legged gait, and sat down between him and the officers. Her body language wasn't aggressive. She wasn't snarling or threatening. She was just there, making a statement. You'll have to go through me. Jesus, Martinez breathed. She's protecting him. Walsh stared at the wolf with something that might have been wonder. Officer Price, you said this wolf was hit by a semi-truck 6 months ago? Yes, ma'am. Shattered femur, ruptured spleen. She shouldn't have survived. But she did. And now she's... Walsh trailed off, watching as the white alpha looked back at Dylan, then forward at the officers, her meaning clear. This is extraordinary. It's dangerous, one of the other officers said. A wolf this comfortable with humans is showing incredible trust, Martinez interrupted, not aggression. Look at her body language. Ears forward but relaxed, tail neutral. She's not threatening us, she's negotiating. Wolves don't negotiate. This one does. The dark grey beta appeared next, positioning himself beside the alpha. Then, the old grizzled male. Then the 2 young pups, barely old enough to be outside the den. One by one, the pack emerged. Not charging, not attacking, just standing together. 9 wolves facing 6 humans. But the wolves weren't preparing for battle. They were presenting themselves. We're here. We exist. We matter. Walsh lowered her clipboard. For the first time, her professional mask cracked. In 25 years with Fish and Wildlife, I've never seen anything like this. Because it's never happened before, Dylan said quietly. This pack shouldn't exist by every rule we know about wolves. But it does. She made it happen. And if you kill her, you're not just eliminating a threat, you're destroying something we might never see again. A long silence stretched across the frozen clearing. Wind moved through pine trees. Snow began to fall, light flurries that caught in the white alpha's fur, making her look even more ethereal.
Walsh turned to Price. "Officer, in your professional opinion, has this pack posed any immediate danger to human life in the 6 months since the Alpha escaped rehabilitation?" Price hesitated. Dylan could see the internal struggle. By the book, Price wanted to say yes, but honest Price couldn't. "No, ma'am, no immediate danger." "And the livestock kills?" "2 calves. Territorial defense after the rancher fired at wolves near his property. Nothing since then." Walsh looked at Martinez. "Your assessment?" "Ma'am, I think Mr. Hart is right. This isn't habituation. This is something else. Something we should study, not eliminate."
The third officer, an older man named Chen, according to his tag, spoke up. "For the record, I agree with Martinez. This feels wrong." Walsh's expression was unreadable. She looked at the wolves, at Dylan, at the cave entrance where 3 newborn pups lay with their mother. "Mr. Hart, if I grant you your 30 days, what exactly are you proposing?" Dylan's heart leapt. "I'll stay here, monitor the pack, document everything. Any signs of aggression toward humans, any livestock predation, anything remotely concerning, I report it immediately. You can send someone to check on me weekly. Full transparency. And after 30 days? If they've caused no problems, you reclassify them as a protected pack. Give them sanctuary status. This territory becomes theirs legally. That's not a decision I can make alone. But you can recommend it." Walsh studied him. "You'd really stay out here, in the middle of winter, living in a cave with 9 wolves?" "Yes." "Why?" Dylan looked at the white alpha. She turned her head and met his gaze. Those amber eyes that had watched him from a highway, from a hospital bed, from the darkness of a blizzard. Eyes that had shown him what survival really meant. "Because she didn't give up when I destroyed her life. Because she came back for me when she had every reason to hate me. Because she showed me that adaptation matters more than perfection. And because I owe her everything." If this story touched your heart, leave a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Now let's see what happens next. Walsh was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out a radio. "Base, this is Director Walsh. Delay the operation. I'm implementing a 30-day observation period." The radio crackled. "Ma'am, are you sure?" "Affirmative. Mr. Hart will serve as primary observer. We'll schedule weekly check-ins. Inform regional command." "Understood." Walsh turned back to Dylan. "You have your 30 days, but understand this. One mistake, one incident, and we come back with no second chances. Those pups, their mother, every wolf in this pack, their lives are in your hands now." "I understand. I hope you do." Walsh gestured to her team. "Let's move out." The officers lowered their weapons and began the trek back to the helicopters. Martinez paused as he passed Dylan. "Good luck," he said quietly. "I think you're crazy, but good luck." Price was last to leave. He stopped in front of Dylan, his expression conflicted. "You just bet everything on a wolf, Dylan. Your freedom, your future, your life. I hope you know what you're doing." "So do I." Price looked at the white alpha. She stared back, unafraid. "She better be worth it." "She is." After they left, after the helicopters took off, and the sound of rotors faded into distance, Dylan sank to his knees in the snow. His hands shook, his heart raced. He'd just faced down the federal government with nothing but words and a prayer. And somehow, impossibly, he'd won. The white alpha approached and pressed, her forehead against his. Her breath was warm against his frozen face. The rest of the pack gathered close, not celebrating, just present, acknowledging what had happened, grateful in their own way. "We have 30 days, Dylan told them. 30 days to prove you're not a threat. Think you can manage that?" The alpha's tail wagged once, just once, but it was enough. The 30 days passed like a dream. Dylan lived with the pack, truly lived with them. He documented everything in a journal, their hunting patterns, selective, efficient, always avoiding human territory. Their social dynamics, complex, cooperative, built on trust rather than dominance.
their interactions with other wildlife, cautious, respectful of territory boundaries. Officer Martinez came for weekly check-ins, as promised. Each visit, he seemed more convinced that Dylan was right. By week 3, Martinez was bringing his own observations, his own notes, building a case for the pack's protection. The newborn pups grew fast. By week 4, they were walking, playing, learning from the older pack members. The female pup, the one who'd slept beside Dylan that night on the highway, bonded with him especially strongly. She followed him everywhere, tripping over her own feet, trying to mimic his movements. Dylan named her Hope. He named the white alpha too, finally, Luna, for the way her white fur glowed in moonlight, for the way she'd appeared like a ghost when he was dying, for the way she'd brought light into the darkness of his life. Margaret visited twice, bringing supplies and shaking her head at Dylan's life choices, but even she had to admit the pack was thriving, healthy, stable, not a threat to anyone. On day 29, Director Walsh herself arrived. She spent 6 hours observing the pack from a distance. Dylan didn't interfere, just let her watch. Let the wolves be themselves. By evening, she approached Dylan with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Mr. Hart, I've reviewed all the documentation, Officer Martinez's reports, your journals, camera footage. I've also consulted with wildlife biologists at 3 universities. Dylan's stomach knotted. And I'm recommending sanctuary status for this territory. 500 acres surrounding this cave will be designated protected habitat. The pack will be monitored, but not disturbed. They're officially under federal protection." Relief hit Dylan so hard he had to sit down. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. You did this. You proved that adaptation and coexistence are possible." Walsh looked at Luna, who watched from the cave entrance. "She's remarkable. They all are. But she's something special." "She is." Walsh handed him a folder. "These are the official documents, the territory designation, and something else, a job offer. We need someone to manage this sanctuary, someone who understands the pack, someone they trust. It pays $45,000 a year, includes a small cabin we'll build on the property, and comes with full benefits." Dylan stared at the papers. "You're offering me a job? You've proven you're qualified. More importantly, you've proven you care. We need people like that." Walsh smiled slightly. "Besides, you're already living here. Might as well make it official." After Walsh left, Dylan sat outside the cave and cried. Not from sadness this time, but from overwhelming gratitude. 6 months ago, he'd been a broken man living in a truck, haunted by loss, running from everything. Now he had purpose, family, home. Luna approached and lay down beside him, her body warm against his. The rest of the pack gathered close. 9 wolves and 1 human, bound together by chance and choice and something deeper than words. "We did it," Dylan whispered. "We actually did it." Luna's tail thumped against the ground. Once, twice, her version of yes. 6 weeks later, Dylan was cleaning out his old truck, finally ready to sell it and truly commit to his new life, when he found a box he didn't remember packing. It was small, wooden, with his wife's initials carved into the lid. Sarah's box. He thought it was lost, donated with the rest of her belongings 3 years ago. Inside were letters, photographs, and a journal he'd never seen before. Dylan's hands trembled as he opened the journal. Sarah's handwriting filled the first page. "Dylan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for leaving, for not being strong enough to beat this. But there's something you need to know, something I couldn't tell you before I got too sick." Dylan's vision blurred. "I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. I found out 3 days before my diagnosis. The doctors said the chemo would kill the baby. Said I had to choose, my life or the baby's life. I chose mine because you begged me to, because you couldn't handle losing me. But Dylan, I spent every night regretting that choice, wondering who our baby would have been, boy or girl, your eyes or mine. And when I died, I took that possibility with me. I took your chance at being a father. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I chose me over us. I'm sorry you'll never know what we could have created together. I hope someday you find something worth living for again. Something that makes the pain worthwhile. Something that fills the hole I'm leaving. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Sarah. The journal fell from Dylan's hands. He sat in his empty truck and sobbed. For his wife. For the child he'd never known existed. For 3 years of grief he'd carried without understanding its full weight. But as he cried, Luna appeared at the truck door. She pushed her nose against his leg. Behind her, the 3 newborn pups tumbled in the snow, playing, learning, living. 3 pups Dylan had helped bring into the world. 3 lives he'd saved. 3 chances at something new. Dylan understood finally what Sarah had meant. Life finds a way. Not the way you expect, not the way you plan, but a way nonetheless. He'd lost his wife and the child they'd never have, but he'd found Luna, and Luna
Had brought him a pack, and that pack had given him purpose, and purpose had given him hope. 2 losses, 2 new beginnings. The white wolf had brought him more than salvation on a frozen highway. She'd brought him a second chance at family, at love, at life worth living. Dylan climbed out of the truck and knelt in the snow. Luna pressed her head against his chest. The pups swarmed him, yipping with excitement. Hope, the female pup with her mother's amber eyes, licked his face with absolute trust. "Thank you," Dylan whispered to Sarah's memory, to Luna's presence, to the universe that had somehow brought them all together. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Luna's tail wagged, the pack gathered close, and for the first time since his wife died, Dylan Hart felt complete.